I'm Steve from Working Traditions, and I'm here with Sandy today, and she's going to show us how to preserve harvests from land that you don't have to have a large piece of land to produce large things.
I'm on little less than a half acre, and I put up 600 jars of food this year. I tap into my local farmers for fruit because I'm not currently producing enough fruit, but all the vegetables currently come off this property are in these jars. So dilly beans, I had a great cauliflower crop last year. These are peppers. That's a pickled cauliflower. I did sweet potatoes, although those are not up here. This is good. This is my potatoes that I grew. It's a Manhattan clam chowder base. And so all I have to do now is open this into a pan and add my fish or my, whatever seafood I want. So I've moved more towards meals in jars. So lots of soups. I have canned beans, which I really like. I don't always have the time to cook the dry beans, and you're supposed to soak them. Who has time for that? But plums. So when I looked at our budget, and I realized we spent so much on fruit. So fruit in the summer, we have in northeastern Ohio, we have tons of fruit. Every farmer has fruit. So I tapped into the local food people, and I said, where do I get plums? Where do I get peaches? All the fruits that we can get. And then you get them at a cost. And there's an auction place in Geauga where you can buy things by the case. And usually if you're canning up and drying, I do a lot of dehydration. I haven't found an apricot farmer out here yet, so I usually have to go down to East 40th and get apricots. But everything here is from this area. So when you start to total in 600 jars, this has also helped us. My food budget for last month was right around $300, and that included the holidays. So it's a huge savings. To get started, you do have to invest in jars. I am still investing in lids, although they're making a silicone lid right now that would last you the rest of your life. And it has little rubber rings on it. And I just haven't converted to those because I've used these for 70 years. so they're not reusable. You have to buy new stock every year. So that's marinated mushrooms. These I can get mushrooms in bulk. You buy a whole tray of them. And then I can can them regular, or I can marinate them, which are so good in salads. Dilly beans are delicious in salads. But the big thing for us is fruit and soups. And there's a hearty chicken stew here. So this, I'll run in the basement, grab this, throw it in a pan, and I make a roux. And it thickens up, and you can serve biscuits with it. You can serve bread with it. And this is delicious. My canning's changed a little bit since my kids don't live here anymore. I've gone to more pints and smaller jars. And so my husband will take one to work. He'll take peaches and fruit cocktail to work and brings the jars home. And so it's one serving. And that's really worked well. I was finding when I was doing the quarts, we were throwing more food away. And it was like, well, that's not why I'm doing this. But I don't think you can beat Ohio peaches.
Now, you'll be teaching at the Homesteading Conference at Lake Metro Park 17 and 18. And I know a lot of people are pretty intimidating when it comes to canning.
Yes. And I think for people who are just starting out, start with water bath canning. There's so many. These are the books I am recommending because these are approved. There's a lot of books that are not approved that have some. I would not can with them, but these are Ball certifies everything, every recipe. This is the University of Georgia, so easy to preserve. This book has over 288 recipes in it. I just think that this is a great book. This is sort of like the Bible of most home canners. This is put out by America's Test Kitchen. They get into if you like crunchy pickles, so it's called low temperature preserving. And this is really, I got into it last year. I prefer refrigerator pickles, but we tried it last year with bread and butter pickles, and they are delicious and they stay crispy. That's another technique. This is my Bible. This has all the food in jars. So, and you can see how much I use it. And then any extension agency, this is what I'm doing this week from the University of California. I'm making Cuban black bean soup. So, and I ran out of split pea soup last week, so I'm canning. Canning used to be only during the seasons, and now canning goes on 12 months out of the year. It's when I run out of soups in the basement, I'm going to restock because I don't want to go to the grocery store. But when you have your turkey at Thanksgiving, collect the carcasses from all your friends who don't want it and make broth. So I have, off of our Thanksgiving turkey that we had, 2 months ago, I have 7 quarts of good organic bone broth in the basement. So that's really, I don't run to the store and get a can of, and it is also cut our waste down. So we have very little trash that goes out because these are, and I am using my mom's jars. So some of my jars are quite old. Might not put them in the pressure canner, but I'll put them in the water bath canner. So we try to pretty much, it's called circular waste here. You try to keep everything on site. So all the leaves we collect, the only thing I'm having trouble with is plastic. We're never going to get away from it. It's really irritating. And this is the Ball Blue book, which usually everybody starts with this book. And they update this every couple years. They just had a new update put out this year, and I need to pick mine up. But they've deleted a couple recipes and they've added some new recipes. They changed a couple processing times. So you need to keep up on all this stuff. So it's really nice to have a community in your group where you can let people know this.
And that's what we were talking. Even I grew up canning with my grandmother, but some of the thoughts have changed and some of the processes have changed.
I think my mother would probably be rolling in her grave right now because the things that I learned at some of the classes I've taken really flew in the face. Well, when we were talking about the paraffin on top of the jelly jars for wax with a little string in it, nobody should do that anymore. They really grow a lot of molds and funguses that you really don't want to consume. I also can potatoes, and I didn't bring a jar of those up. But if you like hash browns, so we grow all our own potatoes. They store pretty well in the basement, but there are times they're already cubed. I throw them on a pan, throw them in the oven, and we've got hash browns in 20 minutes. And they're delicious. And so you're really not limited to, it's like, I think people think you're only going to be eating stewed tomatoes. That is so far from where we're at. As far as botulism goes, I don't worry about that. Botulism is a soil-borne, it's almost everything has botulism with it. But if you're processing the correct times, you have the correct headspace, you're putting hot food into hot jars and putting it in a hot water bath canner or a pressure canner, you're going to take care of it. Acid foods are water bath canned. That's usually where everybody starts, and it's a good place to start because you're working with vinegars. So that will cut back so many things that you're worried about. Then when you get comfortable with water bath canning, move up to pressure canning. And that's when you can do your meats, your stews, anything that's not low acid. Potatoes, green beans. We always used to water bath green beans. No, you have to pressure can them unless they're in a vinegar, unless they're in a very acidic base. So green beans would be something that would need to be pressure canned. Yeah, but last year, I can't remember what the statistics were, but we had I think we had 9 cases of botulism in the United States last year from badly canned food. And it's people who are following rebel canners and you're not following the science. And the science really is important.
So the key is to find a reputable source to learn from and continue to learn from.
Yeah, and the more you can, the Ball Canning book, or the Ball Canning site on Facebook, the moderators from Ball are on there, and so if you have any questions at all, they answer immediately. And I think it's one of the best groups I've run into because they really do support each other. I posted things on there and immediately 5 people say, is that an approved recipe? You know, so they're really watching, which I applaud because I think you need more of that. And then the National Resource for Home Canned Foods, they now have put together a site where you can make up your own soups. So if you don't like something in a soup, there are guidelines you can go to that'll say, okay, put these things in. This is how long you need to pressure can it for, and you know you're going to be safe. You don't have to worry about poisoning your family. But gosh, I don't know. I've been canning. Well, I'm 70, so at least 60 years that I remember, and nobody has ever gotten sick. And some people say on the bulk canning site, well, this is the way my grandmother did it, nobody's ever gotten sick. And immediately one of the moderators will get on and say, you've been very lucky. I would prefer not to have luck play a part in it. But everything is grown on site here, just about everything. I had real good luck with heirloom beans last year. So I have dried beans. They were beautiful. And so I'm planning on growing a lot more of those this year. But do baked beans. You know, it's like I would much rather eat my baked beans than something I'm getting out of a can from a company that I don't know what's in it. And when you read the ingredients on the can now, I think the things that my mom and my grandma were eating in a canned food is so different than what we're eating in a canned food today, because there's so many fillers and there's so many. So this way I know.
And I think there's a resurgence now among people wanting to eat healthy and know what's in their food,
yes,
compared to, even 100%. A few years ago.
You didn't have nut roll every day. You didn't have fried bread every day or whatever that was. But you did have really healthy bread that you ate at every meal. And I'm not so big on bread. But most of the stuff, like she would take a jar of tomatoes and mix it with a little bit of cream that came in from my uncle's cow. So I know it wasn't, pasteurized or probably nothing. And then put a slab of butter on top. And I'm like, how did we survive? And bacon was a food group. So, but yeah.
You see they're changing the food pyramid, right?
Oh, I just saw that. Yes. And I'm just like, oh.
So my doctor, I asked her, with all the crazy diets out there, like, what am I supposed to follow? She goes, 2 things: moderation, and if your great-grandparents don't recognize it, don't eat it.
If you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. And my doctor said if you're going to eat meat, it should be as big as that part of your hand, and the rest of your plate should be filled with vegetables. And everybody needs to eat more vegetables. Grains, greens, and beans should be the main component of your diet. So, and it's like, I think that's pretty easy to stick with. So I do a lot of canned beans because I want to go in the basement and get a jar and put them on my plate, or make hummus or something else. So that's really, the big thing is eat the rainbow. As long as you're eating lots of color, beets, oh my God. Oh, I put carrots in everything. We had meatballs last night with, which wanted pasta. I don't eat pasta, but the meatballs I make, they have green powder in them. They have grated carrots. They have every vegetable I can tuck in there. And some meat, some ground turkey. But, because I do a lot of dehydrating too. So when the kale's coming in and you're thinking like, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this kale? It goes in the dehydrator. My dehydrator usually sits out on the porch. And as fast as I can dehydrate it, and then I grind it into green powder with NutriBullet. And one whole dehydrator, I only get that much in a jar. And when that's plants and plants and plants that you're stuffing in that dehydrator. And so I'm thinking, I would never eat that much kale. But to dump a tablespoon into a blueberry smoothie, you're getting your greens. And you need those greens. I mean, everybody's telling you to eat more kale.
And there's no anti-caking agents or all that kind of stuff.
The only thing I have, do I have one in here? There it is. This is a silica packet.
Okay, yeah.
And you can get them on Amazon, but they keep all the moisture out. So if you ever have dehydrated food and you shake it up and it's not moving, you have moisture in it. And that degrades your dehydrated foods. It's funny because I'm watching this, and yet I'm reading Elliot Coleman right now. And Elliot Coleman has gotten away from all this. And so I'm reading this book and I'm thinking, wow, that would be such a revelation if, because he lives in Maine and he can grow food 12 months out of the year. And I thought that would be amazing. And so will we eventually move on to something else? I don't know. I know freeze drying's come on hard and fast. People can buy home freeze dryers now. I still like a jar of soup. It's still like a jar of peaches. Peaches in January are such a luxury. It's like, and I defy anyone to go to the store, get a can of peaches, and then get home, a jar of peaches. And get to know if you keep your dollar, if you go to a local farmer and buy your peaches from a local farmer, that dollar stays in the community. So it really makes a lot of sense to support your local farmers, to keep the system going. They need our help, we need their help. I can't grow everything I'm going to consume on a half acre. Even for 2 people and my chickens. We're going to need a little bit of help. And it is such a resource. And then I spend a lot of time running back roads in the summer looking for people. And you do find them. I mean, they're there. You just have to hunt them down. And because I'm a potter, it's like I have the luxury to sometimes go out and do that. I have a busy season and I have a not so busy season. So it's really been, it's been a good way to live. I have no regrets.
Even in the few conversations we've had, it's amazing the community we've built now, because, I'll say, well, do you know this person? You're like, oh, did you try this person? Or, so just referring each other to people in the community that's growing this or that.
Yeah, I almost wish we had like a little booklet where we could get together I think if 10 people from Lake County got together, sat down and put our heads together, you would be amazed at who's that. I got an email yesterday. There's someone in Lake County who's wholesaling microgreens by the tray now. And they're affordable. And it's like, well, I would be interested in that. I can grow my own, but there's some that I'm not going to grow, like pea shoots and sunflowers, but they're growing those. And so there's a local food co-op in Lake County that I don't think a lot of people know exists.
Yeah, I don't know about it.
Yeah. So it's, when you really get out and start to see who's doing what and you start to talk to people, and somehow we need to be connected because it really does help to have the connections. I had a terrible time finding, I like yard chickens. I would prefer to eat yard chickens as not from the grocery store. I had a terrible time finding somebody who was growing chickens this year that I could say I would like 5 chickens. And finally I found a kid out in Leroy. And so it's to find those people who are actually out there. And he's struggling because nobody knows he's out there. He had a woman call and place an order for 2 bushels of tomatoes and she never showed up. That doesn't help anybody.
No.
So he's struggling with ideas like that too. And so he and I have kept in touch, and it's like, and he's growing things through the winter. He's got a hoop house. He hooked up a wood stove in it, and he's growing stuff. And I'll take you out back and show you my little bitty cattle panel hoop house. But you don't need a greenhouse. You don't need much, I have to say. You don't need much. Seed banks are huge now. Morley Library has a seed bank.
And for those who are just watching that don't know what a seed bank is, what is a seed bank?
Free seeds. So I collect a lot of seeds, and especially for things that, last year I grew a watermelon called Blacktail Mountain Watermelon. It was developed by a guy up in Idaho. 70-day growing period. Sweetest watermelons I've ever had, and it's an heirloom, so you can recycle the seeds. You can replant the seeds. So out of 1 watermelon, you get way more seeds than you're ever going to use. So I'll donate those to the seed bank. So you can go up. So remember all the old card catalogs? Those are now being turned into seed banks. So you can go up to the 2nd floor of Morley Library and flip through all the seeds. And if you want to grow squash this year, lettuce, they might have seeds up there for you. But it's illegal for seed companies to sell their seeds after the year that they produce them. So if they were produced for 2025, they can't sell them again. So most of them throw them out. And instead of throwing them out, more people are donating to seed banks. And I think that is a great way to get involved. If you have a balcony, throw some seeds in a pot. If you have a little teeny tiny yard, make your borders lettuce or herbs. Herbs are expensive. Throw herbs in the ground. I love walking out my back door, and if I'm cooking something in here, I can grab basil. I have lavender growing everywhere, and I grow a lot of stuff in my front yard that people have no idea what I'm growing. But I use pepper plants, ornamentals, because they're pretty. They're bright red. Nobody knows what they are. And they look pretty with the flowers. I grow eggplant because they're pale purple. Some of them are dark purple. They fit in beautifully with all my flowers. They're pollinated and they don't get disease.
And when you talk at the homestead or the homesteading event at like Metro Parks, you're also going to talk about landscaping with that.
Oh, for sure.
So many of us think of a garden as just straight rows that we run a rototiller up, but it can be part of the landscape.
I like the crazy garden. I mean, I'll throw things in. So here's another thing with edible landscaping. So you see a lot of hostas when you pull down my driveway. Hostas are edible. They taste like asparagus. You take the green shoots before they unfurl their leaves, saute them up in a pan with a little garlic. They're delicious. You should eat them before the deer do. But they're absolutely, people are floored when you tell them you get dahlia bulbs. Delicious. So there are things that grow all over this yard. In my front yard, I have an amelanchier, which is a service berry, and Lepin's cherry tree. So, and they're great shade trees, but I get the benefits out of all those. I grew a 23-pound watermelon on my Pacifica juniper last year. Nobody knew. People walk up and down the street and they're like, "Oh, your yard is so pretty." And I'm standing there munching on stuff. But yeah, everything in the front yard. And even though there's an ordinance in the city of Painesville that says you can't grow things in your front yard, you can. You can if you do it respectfully, and if you do it. And I think a lot of people have no idea what food looks like. But where you have a property line, this year I'll be espaliering. I put whip apple trees in last year. So if you're on a very narrow lot, espalier your fruit trees. Pear trees, apple trees, plums can all be espalier.
When you're talking about that, it's a trellising system that you train.
Right. Yeah, it takes up no space. You're taking up such a minimal space. It's good screening. I'm on a very tight lot here. It's 63 feet between my neighbors and I. But we go way back. But 63 feet, it's like, well, I would like a little screening. So that is what one of the best ways you can do it. You trellis right down the line. You can do berries that way. Blackberries, raspberries are a little bit more rangy, but when we're all out in the backyard, it's so nice to have that green barrier. It also is a sound barrier, so you don't hear some of the noise. It's good for wildlife. My yard's been designated by like Metro Parks as a backyard wildlife area, so we'd like to keep it that way. When we moved here, this was totally barren, flat. There was nothing here. And now, last spring, we had 17 species of warblers go through my bird feeder. And it's like, those things never came before. We have left the locust trees for the bees, because locust trees are one of the first flowering trees that the bees really need. So everything has been done with a purpose here. When I worked in landscaping, everything was ornamental. And I just thought, anything I touch this much, I should be able to eat it. So it really changed my thinking on how, but there are flowers mixed in every garden on this property, because you have to have pollinators. And you're helping the environment. So I don't want to eat lettuce that's trucked in from 2,300 miles away in the Salinas Valley in California. The quality I'm going to get out of my backyard is going to be way better than almost anything I can get at the grocery store. I'm also working on hydroponics now in my bay. I've got a hydroponic system going, and I now have come to 3 kales and 2 lettuces that will survive all through Ohio winters in my hoop house. So we can, and I got them started too late this year, so they're but they have not died. So even through the bitter cold that we've had, I'll go take the frost cloth off, and they're like, hello. So they're there, and I'll get a kickstart on those as soon as the weather warms up, and we'll be eating pretty quickly. So, but the hydroponics are a great way to help out too. So
I mean, basically, no matter what living space you have, you can grow something.
you can grow something, yeah. And I used to shudder. My kids would say, "Oh, I bought a pack of basil." I'm like, "What? You bought basil? You can start it on your windowsill." You know, it's literally, and the seeds are big, so it's not like lettuce seeds where you're like straining to see the seeds. Basil seeds fit in the palm of your hand. You put them in a pot, stick them on your windowsill. You'll have fresh basil within a week or two. And herbs want to be touched, so the more you cut them, the better they're going to do. And this has herbs, this has herbs, this has herbs, this has herbs. My breads have herbs, so life would be boring without herbs. And they're medicinal too. So I'm drinking mullein tea, and it just makes a lot of sense to me to do things this way. As we go to the grocery store, I think we go now for field trips just because we want to see what's there. But we miss peppers, fresh peppers. We miss. I still will not buy tomatoes in January. They just don't. Even the cherry bombs don't taste good. So, but I have sun-dried tomatoes that are delicious. I have roasted cherry tomatoes that I do in the oven with garlic, basil, onions, and then I run them through the food processor. We put them in little jars and freeze them. And that's so, you put it on pasta, bread, you can toss it with squash. It tastes like summer. Another luxury. so there's I had a gallery on the west side, and I was coming home when the government shut down the first time, and I think it was 2016, and Muni Lot was filled with cars of people getting food, and they were big cars and expensive cars, and they had no reserve. And I asked a woman, I said, "What? You don't buy extra pasta when you go to the grocery?" She said, "No, I'm feeding 5 kids." And I was like, oh my God, it would just never occur to me not to throw something extra in. And that was the big wake-up call for me, to see hundreds of people waiting in line for food. I never thought I would see that. It's shocking.
Which, we raise livestock, and even as an example during COVID, I had people calling me like, "Do you have anything?" And it's like, it shows you how fragile our food system is. If
this is food security. Your chickens are food security. So yeah, I have 5 chickens. I used to have 13, but we just don't need that anymore. But they make really good soup. People always get upset. It's like, yes, I did at one time butcher my own chickens, and they're like, "How could you do that?" And I said, like, first of all, don't name your chickens. Never name your chickens. And second of all, they had a great life. From the time they were hatched till the time that they decided to, it made so much sense to me. They were delicious. They provided eggs. They provide for the compost pile, which feeds my soil. Every single part of that animal was used here. Everything stayed here. The feathers. Would you like to see my pastry brush?
Sure.
I have to show you my pastry brush. So this is from my grandmother. And every time we butchered chickens, we made pastry brushes.
I've never seen that. What do you use a pastry brush for?
So when you're putting butter on, when you're putting butter on the top of your bread before it goes into the oven. I did puff pastry for New Year's. It got brushed with butter. Milk when you're going over pie crust. Anything that brush the flour off the bottom of the pastry dough before you put it in. That's what I use. so completely compostable, completely recyclable, and I know where they came from. Yep. So it's, and the shafts are 100% cotton wrapped in string, so that's all going to decompose. No plastic, no. It just seems, The floors, my floors, are recycled paper bags. What is the old term? Live simply, live simply so that others can simply live.
And so much of this has gotten lost over maybe a generation or so because the food companies, they promoted ease. They promoted,
Yes.
Whatever's easy and fast.
My mom bought right into that. Yeah, because I think when you're working full time, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the other things, like for me growing up as a kid, we had canning parties. Like my uncle would come in, my mom, my grandma, my great grandma, and everybody took food home. So you might can 100 jars of soup, but then everybody took 25 jars home. And it looked, we canned in my great grandmother's basement, and we butchered chickens in my great grandmother's basement. But so if you're working alone, it is a lot of work. But if you can tap into one or two people, find friends, another group, do it. Because even if you think, oh, I'm getting 12 jars, well, you're getting 6. That's 6 that you didn't have. Wait for canning jars to go on sale. None of my canning equipment I have bought. It has all come off Facebook Marketplace, garage sales. I think the only piece of equipment, I just bought a steamer for juices. I think, did I bring up? Yeah, cranberry juice. So I can cranberry juice. So I found a steamer on Facebook Marketplace for $25. That would have cost me $68 on Amazon. And this came from a woman in Eastlake. And so, hunt, because people get tired of doing something and they get rid of their stuff.
And there are places you can go to test that pressure cooker too to make sure it's safe.
Absolutely. So my pressure cooker now has a gauge and I don't even know what they call it, pressure gauge and a weight gauge. And so I don't really need to get the gauge checked anymore as long as you've got one or the other. But if you only have a dial gauge, you have to go to a welding shop now to have them tested. Some of the extension agencies, you can take your pressure can or two to have them checked. Ashtabula will do it. Lake County no longer does it. So you might need a trip to Ashtabula and talk to them.
And this is really what the importance of community in food is. Just to find the resources where you can go.
Yeah, and if you need a new seal, order yourself a new seal every year. Not every year, every 2 years is usually, and now they're making silicone seals, which are so much better. They last longer than the old rubber seals that we used to get. But it's really good to keep up with all this stuff because it changes. And some of the stuff that they're coming out with are better. There are also new canning lid companies that I tapped into last year. I tested 3 different companies, and I ended up going back to Ball. Because the new ones, they looked great, they were heavier, they had a silicone ring on it, and after about 6 months, you'd pick them up and the seals gave way. And you work too hard to do this. But the lids have gotten thinner. We no longer have to boil the lids, you just wash them in hot soapy water and keep them warm.
Okay, and I haven't done that since we used to have a little pot with them boiling and you pull them out.
Yeah, we don't do that anymore. So that's a thing of the past. Don't turn your jars upside down anymore. So don't do that. Lots of. So, and the other thing that we used to, because we were canning so much as a kid, as soon as they would be ending the processing time, we'd be pulling them out of the canner. You wait 5 minutes now. That was new to me. You wait 5 minutes, none of your jars will siphon. So you don't have to worry about your headspace. You don't have to worry about losing your seal. You just leave them in the canner for 5 minutes and walk away. The other thing that I learned at Penn State is the term flat sour. If you pressure can, as soon as your gauge drops to 0, take the lid off, get your jars out. Because if you leave them in overnight, you get, it's a bacteria that grows. It's not harmful. You can still eat it, but it changes the flavor of the food. And it's not for a good change. It's something that it's why they call it flat sour. It has a sour taste to it. And so just follow those guidelines and you'll be fine. So lots of ways to there are set standards. And the more you read about it, go to the Ball Canning site, healthycanning.com. has great recipes. The Balcanning site has great recipes. If you don't have time to or the money to invest in the books, everything is online. Everything. So you can print out a page. You can print out a page at your library. Some of the extension agencies still have recipes and canning guidelines you can pick up. I highly recommend that because everything's gone through their the Ohio State testing. And Penn State, I'm so impressed with what they're doing. And Georgia State. For Georgia State to put out a book, these books before COVID were $25. Now they're 40. But it's a very basic book. And some of the things that I get a little irritated with, so we cook chili. I can chili. And I do it with chicken. And I would like to use ground chicken. They have all the tests for venison, bear, all the game animals, and none for ground chicken. It's like, could somebody please test ground chicken? So I used cube chicken because they have tested cube chicken, and that's okay. But no ground turkey, no ground chicken. So
and what I found too a lot now, we raise chickens too in the processor. We get a lot more ground chicken, and we get a lot more even seasoned ground chicken. How many more people are using ground chicken versus?
Yeah, well, I know just in my little circle, almost very few people are using beef like they used to. More and more are going to ground turkey and ground chicken because they think it's healthier. There are many sides to that story.
Which we raise beef too, so we still eat a lot of beef.
Yeah. If you can get grass-fed, happy cows, go for it. It's just very hard to find. So call them if you need.
And that's what's nice about meeting your local producers. You can kind of see how things are raised.
Absolutely. Go out, see the livestock, see how they're handled. I'm really excited. We're getting a facility up in Ashtabula now for processing. Did you see that?
Yep. Our chickens, we have appointments for next year.
Do you really? They were booking up so fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, that was like huge.
Because right now, we always used we have to have an inspected facility, to sell our customers. And we were having to drive 2 hours away.
Yes. They were in 4-H and couldn't find anybody to process their kids' animals. And they were like, well, this is ridiculous. So the first place they looked at fell through. And then they went to this place in Conneaut. And I mean, there were parties when these people opened up. Because I think it's great. So we needed this in this area and we got it. So
just because backyard poultry is getting so large, it is nice to have a processor around us.
Yes, as opposed to me with the neighborhood cat watching me, my inspector, Rufus. But you do what you got to do. And I think because I had grown up doing it, it's like I didn't even think twice about it. My kids were appalled. My husband actually looked around the corner and goes, "You don't need any help, do you?" I'm like, "No, we're fine." But it was so... And it was fascinating to see those chickens' health because I knew exactly what they had eaten. I knew exactly where they had been. So a bit of a science nerd, but I don't know, it makes sense. I'm going to eat it, so why not? But yeah, so that's pretty much. Don't can bread. My mother used to can bread. Do not can bread. I will put that out there right now. I've had so many people say, "Oh, do you have a canned bread recipe?" Because it was like a brown bread. I'm like, no, absolutely not. Just stick to fruits and vegetables and meats, any of the meats, and not ground turkey or chicken. So you're pretty much covered. But to know that there are 600 jars in my basement, I think that's food security. And if you can't get locally raised, happy vegetables or whatever, East 40th, you can go down to the food terminal and they're now selling organic cases of organic fruits and vegetables. And you just got to know the right place to go to. I haven't had to do that. And Geauga County Growers is another just great place. And what I'm finding, because I'm not using as much as I used to, find a buddy and split a case. You know, go down together, bid on a case of strawberries or pumpkins or whatever, and split it. It's the cost efficiency of doing that. I've priced these in the store. These go for $8 to $10 for a much smaller jar. These cost me not even 50 cents. You figure each bean plant is capable of growing 50 beans. And so there are not 50 beans in here, and a bean seed costs me pennies. So the only thing I'm paying for is the lid and the vinegar. I grew the garlic, and there's a little cayenne pepper in there. So it costs me pennies to have dilly beans. It costs me pennies for chickpeas. Even the ones with meat in it, like this is a soup that we love. Chicken sausage and kale, white bean and kale soup. It's delicious. And these are my beans, my carrots, my kale. So this is like $1.50. And this will feed 2 of us easily. So a meal, we haven't bought bread in years because I do make our own bread because that was another one. I did the cost efficiency. What was it? I can buy a 50-pound bag of organic, non-GMO, non-bromated flour for $24. A 50-pound bag. 1 loaf of bread is a pound. That's 50 loaves of bread for $25. That's like a no-brainer. It's just, I don't do sourdough. But when you sit down and you have a bowl of soup and a hunk of bread and a salad, which is also coming out of the yard or the hydroponic system, you can eat very cheaply. And I worked for a farmer when I was 17, and I used to try to figure out, he ate very much like this. He was a teacher, his wife was a teacher, and he farmed 200 acres out in Columbia Station. He raised a few cows, but it was mostly a grain farm. And I used to watch how much food came off that 200 acres, and it was staggering. And I used to think, he did it with very little work because he was working full-time, his wife was working full-time. And I'm thinking, even back 100 years ago, you didn't have the conveniences we have today. So how did they grow all their food? So you have to do it in an efficient way. And I think we sometimes stumble over ourselves. We make it harder than it has to be. And so you're putting things in the ground fairly quickly. Succession planting is huge. That also means you're probably going to can from May to November, really. And I'm still canning. So it's really interesting to me, though, because they didn't have time to be tending and picking over every little plant and worrying about it. There was no time. So we have to get to thinking along those lines again, where it becomes part of your life. It's like you work with your kids with homework in the evening. Well, maybe at some part of the day you need to go out and water your garden or look at it at least, walk around your yard. I take tons of pictures because the things I grew 5 years ago and the things I'm growing even last year, we've had 3 years of drought. And it's been pretty devastating. So when I look at my pictures of my garden 5 years ago, it's completely different than it was last year.
And it is amazing how a garden can be so different from one year to the next.
I'm always still amazed. I sometimes go through the year and think, oh, I don't have enough to put in a jar. Like I'll have a bean failure, which I did 2 years ago. And I'm now canning 2 years in advance and I learned that a couple years ago when we had that real late frost and all the peach trees got hit. You couldn't get peaches here. And so we went for a year without peaches. And it was either that or drive to Georgia and get peaches. So I just thought, can for 2 years. Because the nutritional value is your best for the first year, and then it starts to drop off, but you're fine for 2 years. And as long as the seal is good and the seal's not broken, they're fine. So chances are you're not going to get a late frost 2 years in a row. Chances are, I got skunked out of cucumbers last year. We had a huge infestation of cucumber beetles. So we had no pickles last year. So now I'm learning with climate change and a few other things. If you're canning for if you're putting food aside for 2 years, you're not going to get skunked out for. Chances are you're going to recover by the third year. So
the point is, don't give up. I mean, just because one year's bad doesn't mean.
But I think the thing that amazes me is like last year, there were some things I was really upset that I didn't get. But yet I have pictures of my counters covered with food that all came out of this yard. And I think that the gardens, things want to live. You put a seed in the ground, it wants to live. And you get something. It may not be the biggest tomatoes you've ever gotten. It may not be the biggest potatoes you've ever gotten, but you're going to get something. And each year crops fluctuate. And it's so interesting talking to people like from North Carolina and people from Indiana, how their weather patterns affect. And 1 year, my friend in North Carolina had no bugs. They just had no pests at all. And I'm like, what? I've never had a year with no pests. So it was super interesting to me that those years exist. And so you kind of it's almost like nature goes, okay, we'll give you a reprieve this year, but don't sit on your butt because you better stay busy. So it's, don't sit back and wait for a sunny day. You've got to pretty much stay on it. So everybody thinks gardening ends in January. I'm starting onions tomorrow. My winter sowing is starting this week. So everything will go out that needs to be winter sown. Onions, leeks, and shallots, I all start from seed. So that will all go in this week. And then when we get towards the end of the month, and then I'll be planting radishes in March, end of February. And that's a 30-day turnaround crop. So, yeah. If you live in Ohio, there's no reason to ever go hungry. Just in my humble opinion. But anyway, so it's worked for us. I don't know. We're not sick very often, hardly ever. I think it makes a difference.
And you make a powder too.
Yeah, well, when your garden is going full tilt and you don't know what to do with all that kale and lettuce, and this is even broccoli leaves. You know how you grow a head of broccoli or cauliflower and you get all these leaves and this little head of broccoli or cauliflower? Well, I used to give it to the chickens, and I thought, well, this is crazy. I should dehydrate it, and I make it into green powder. So anything that's good, I dehydrate it, and then I run it through a NutriBullet. I don't know what green powder goes for in the store. Has anybody priced it? I don't know.
20s probably, yeah.
I think it's expensive. And so I put a tablespoon of this in everything. In everything. We were just talking about meatballs. I put it in meatballs. I put it in a smoothie. Baked goods. If you don't mind green cornbread. Just tell it's got chilies in it. So, and that's all stuff. And I know it's in my soil. So...
And I'll be talking about soil at the homestead, but I mean, that's the key to everything is a good soil.
Well, your plants will tell you if you got bad soil. They'll let you know immediately. So, and that's the part about walking around every day. I do a morning walkabout, and I often post pictures on my Facebook page because it's like morning. I go walk around with a cup of tea, and I look, how's everybody doing? Who's getting infested? The deer have been eating. And all the tricks over the years, like, I used to laugh when I was in a state garden, deer. Everybody screamed about deer. Well, we have hostas all around the front of our house and down the driveway, and we have deer because of the cemetery. Get Vicks VapoRub on a little cotton ball and put it on a stick in the ground, Vicks on a stick, and they will leave your hostas alone. They'll leave anything alone, really. They don't like the smell. And it also deters raccoons. It deters. So that's sort of my little trick for, especially when I put stuff in the front yard, because the deer just like walk across the street and like, what do you got? It's a salad bar in the front yard. So they're quite happy. And last year I had no hosta damage at all. So we're going to do it again this year. But yeah, when I go in the front yard, I see just pairs of eyes as far as I can see. I know they're coming for your shrubs. So, but it's challenging. I think living in the city because of the zoning, you know, we have so many. My girlfriend out in Madison, she goes, "What deer?" I'm like, "What?" And she runs the salad farm. She runs a lettuce farm, and I'm like, "Really? You don't have any deer?" She goes, "No, people hunt out here, and we don't have any trouble with it." And I was like, "Oh my God."
We definitely have deer. At night, if you shine a light across the soybean field, you just see eyes.
As far as you can see, I know. Once in a while, I'll take the pot spot, and I know we're not supposed to.
Yeah.
I'll take it, I'll run it across, and the cemetery's like, and they've got the golf course used to be at the bottom of the hill, and that when the floods came through, they just let that go wild. We have the most beautiful 10-point buck. You will, I mean, it's like somebody cued the deer, and he'll just come trotting across the cemetery, but he's huge, and my husband hit him at the bottom of the hill, and he just got up, shook it off, and walked. And my husband still doesn't have his car back yet. So deer. But I don't know. When I was in landscaping, we say deer were like water. You just had to tell them where to go. You could move them where you wanted them to go. But I can't imagine planting soybeans and corn and.
Well, what's nice if they're in the soybeans, they don't go in the garden.
Well, there's a point. So I put in a fence last spring, put it in myself, and then I added an extra 3 feet above, so just in case I have to go up one more board, in case they have to, because we're not allowed to have electric fencing in the city, and I'm looking at that going, they're just going to go right over the top. So far, we have lazy deer. They're very lazy. The possums will go through the fence. The raccoons go right over the fence, but the deer have stayed all along the perimeter. And I think it's because we're the only ones that have a fence, so they think easy pickings up and down the street. And then I have a neighbor who actually puts a salt lick out for them. It's like, stop it. But that's what it's like living in the city. So you have no control.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's kind of all my tips on canning. I know there's probably, I'll think of 10 more when we're done. But if you want to go walk around,
sure, let's see what's outside.
Take a spin and see everything.